Hey, this is Leah, and you are listening to Sonic Perspectives.
And it feels like a knife in the back of the door. You opened and closed it forevermore. And it feels like tonight is the edge of your sword. All the pages of this book are
It seems like you've been gaining a lot more traction lately, and that's awesome. But at the same time, it also feels like you just kind of came out of nowhere. I don't know what the Leah origin story is. Would you mind telling me?
Sure, yeah. I have a background in songwriting throughout childhood, and I didn't actually start my music career officially, publicly, until I was already married and settled down with a family. And so my story is very different from the typical musician, I think, that goes out into the world and tours endlessly and gets their name out there and then settles down later in life. I did things completely backwards. So I started my music career in 2012. That was when I released my first album of Earth and Angels. And it was kind of this Celtic folk rock type album. And I felt like the least cool rock star ever because I had three little ones at home, like in diapers and potty training, and I was pregnant with the fourth, and I sang that album when I think I was 8 months pregnant in the studio. So I felt like this giant whale in a vocal booth. And so I was like by far the most uncool rock star in the history of music, but I did it anyway. And at the time, I didn't have any fan base yet. I was starting completely ground zero.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was, the advantage of that is that I didn't really, I was doing it for me, and I wasn't so concerned with how it was going to turn out or how it was going to sound or if I was going to disappoint anybody. I just had to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, my origin story is not as glamorous as others, but it does, it is interesting, I guess.
Okay, you said just a moment ago that your origin story isn't metal at all, but I dispute that. Because, I mean, if you're 8 months pregnant and you're dealing with three young kids, that's not easy. So I give you mad props for recording your album amidst all of that chaos. I'm a parent, too. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, yeah, it becomes your normal, right? So
Yeah.
it was just my normal. Yeah, it was hectic, but there's nap times and bedtimes and there's wine. So, yeah, it's all good.
So you've been making some damn good Celtic-inspired metal for several years now, but you've got a new album coming out in a little bit, and you've kind of mellowed it out for this new record. Why the change of pace?
Yeah, well, this is a winter/holiday themed album, and it was this perfect time for me to just branch out. And I've always wanted to do a more fantasy based album that didn't have the metal in it, and the holidays is like a perfect time to do that because it kind of calls for something a little more subdued and more atmospheric. And so I just took advantage of that, and I had always planned to do it anyways. I thought The Quest, my last album, I thought that was actually going to be my fantasy album that without the metal, and it did not turn into that. It went kind of the opposite direction.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, let's do it now. And I may still do one in the future that's just like a fantasy, kind of Celtic fantasy album, but I definitely still want to do metal in the future too.
How did writing mostly acoustic music this time around, or mostly mellow music anyway, compared to the heavier stuff that you normally do?
Oh, it's almost exactly the same process because I'm not adding in all the metal right out of the gate. I mean, a guitar player might sit down and he's already using distortion right out of the gate when he's doing his writing. But for me, I'm writing the melody, the lyrics, the whole entire composition before we ever add guitars and heavy drums and stuff. That comes in after the fact. So it may happen to be a strength of mine in terms of songwriting, in that I'm leading with melody, I'm leading with structure, I'm leading with just the melodic parts before I'm adding in all the rocking parts.
Hmm.
And I mean, of course, it's more than just adding metal sauce to it, but at the core of it, there should be a good song without the distortion. So the songwriting process was virtually the same.
Yeah, so yeah, take away all the metal sauce and you still have a solid piece of meat down there.
Yeah, exactly. Or you can something you can still perform acoustically or however.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it allows the song itself to shine rather than the embellishments around it.
Yeah, that's the idea.
I've noticed that with a lot of bands, with a lot of movements and different schools of whatever, there's typically a reaction against what came before. And I first became aware of you a little over a year ago when you were involved with a certain black metal band that I happen to like, and now you're doing this acoustic thing, and I wonder if there was like a deliberate attempt to do something completely different from that.
No, that's actually not a thought of mine. I think I'm an artist through and through, in that I just love to experiment. I mean, I really do love to experiment with different genres and stuff. And Eric Peterson, he's a good friend of mine. We've been friends for I don't know how long now, like 12 years or something like that. So, and we've always talked about working together. So whenever there's like an opportunity for me to like sing on his record or him to do something with me, like we always try to take each other up on that whenever possible. So it's, for me, that's just another creative outlet.
Are we going to hear you on a Testament album sometime?
I don't think, maybe not Testament, but certainly maybe another Dragonlord, or maybe Eric and I finally actually do a solo project. We'll see.
That would be incredible.
That would be awesome. We always talk about it, so you never know.
Yeah, because I mean, like I really like that last Dragonlord album, but it took them like what 12 years to put it out.
Yeah, yeah, it was a while.
So I got your new album, and like I don't want to mention the title or anything about it quite yet, but I got it late last week, and I gave it repeated blind listens where I just put it on repeat without looking at its title or anything. I went into it knowing that it was you and nothing else, and I just put it on repeat while I was doing other things. And my first completely uninformed observations were these: one, it sounds like winter, like it could be a Christmas album for people who hate Christmas albums.
That is a good reaction. I'm happy with that.
And like second reaction, I could imagine you collaborating with, I don't know, maybe some members of Helveti or maybe even Troy from Nightwish.
Well, they are on there, so
And the third observation that I made was, wow, this kind of sounds like Enya from Metalheads.
oh, that's great. Even though there's no metal in it.
Yeah, even though there's no metal in it, I mean, we'll get to the album itself in just a moment. There's something about it. I can just tell that the people that were involved in it were involved in metal also. There's just something about it that I can't quite put into words.
Well, that's cool. I'm glad that it sounds like winter. That's what I was going for. The idea was to hopefully give people something to listen to longer than 1 month out of the year. You know what I mean? And give it that magical atmosphere that we love, and give it a soundtrack.
Yeah, I don't know if I should congratulate you first for doing such a fine job of creating the record that you were hearing in your head, or if I should congratulate your publicist for nailing the press release.
Wow, that's awesome. I'm glad that it aligned. Maybe that's not usually the case. I don't know.
Let's talk about your upcoming album. What's it called?
It's called Ancient Winter.
And what's the idea behind it?
Yeah, the main idea is really I work in terms of mood and vibe and atmosphere and visual images rather than a specific narrative. For me, I wanted to feel like I was at some kind of medieval chapel somewhere in time. And for me, it was like, I want to see monks and choirs and it's snowing outside and I'm somewhere in like, the UK maybe, and there's ruins around, and it's nighttime and it's cold, and I just, for me, I'm seeing all of this stuff and trying to put it into song format, and then bring in other moods and vibes, and yeah, it's got the winter, it's got a festive holiday vibe to it, and I wanted it to have that, but yeah, generally I just wanted it to feel completely magical, enchanting, with this like medieval Celtic twist to it.
Yeah, it absolutely does. Like the opening cut, Hold World Summons. You know, before you even start singing, before you utter a word, that this is winter music. And how do you do that?
That's a good question. I think it had to do with some of the instrumentation and the mood. I don't know. It's true. If you were to listen to that first song, I wouldn't picture summer either. So I think it has to do with the specific instruments. It has to do with the key. It has to do with the vibe, and maybe just the intentions I threw into it. I don't know. I don't know how that stuff works, but I'm not sure.
Yeah,
It's a little bit mysterious.
Yeah, it really came through, and I have to tell you, that song is such a wonderful journey, and the fact that so much happens in that song without it being overwhelming, you know, and it also feels like it's a lot shorter than the 5 minutes that it runs, and I think that speaks to how well crafted that song is.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's always a nice compliment when you have a long song and it doesn't feel long.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad.
There's that wonderful violin solo in that song. Is that who I think it is?
The violin solo is Shiron Yinin. And yeah, guest musician. She's amazing, and she plays with all kinds of metal bands out there. Has guested on so many different albums, and she's really so professional, flawless on her instruments. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, like I first became aware of her when she played for Helvetii for about a year and a half or so, and like after I investigated some of her other work, I was like, damn, this girl's good.
She really is. I mean, I just heard nothing but good things from my producer, who was getting all her raw files, because that's how we do it, sending files back and forth these days, and it was just like, she's unbelievable, Leah, like just flawless. So it's rare for that kind of instrument.
So the second song, Light of the World, it's got a notable Middle Eastern influence, you know, and how did that song come about?
Yeah, that song came about with usually me just playing around and stumbling onto something. And in fact, all my favorite songs that I've written are usually written when I'm just playing around and sampling and giving myself room to just play and not really force any kind of songwriting activity. And for that one, as soon as I stumbled onto that Middle Eastern vibe, which I've always been drawn to that stuff, I've always loved it. The lyrics came fairly quickly as well, and I quickly was able to kind of just pinpoint a bit of a direction in terms of just the theme of the song. This one is a little more of a traditional theme in terms of Christmas story type stuff.
Yeah.
And so it, the Magi from the East, coming from that area of the world, geographically and stuff. It kind of made sense for me to do that.
Yeah, so that was my suspicion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there a hammered dulcimer in there? I swear I hear one back there.
Yeah, well, there is definitely it's probably sprinkled throughout a few songs. There's so many instruments going on. Some of them I can't even pronounce, to be honest, because I have access to all these, hundreds and thousands of virtual instruments. Sometimes we're using instruments that neither of us have ever heard of. When I say us, I mean producer and I. We've never even heard of them. We have to Google them, but we just love the way they sound, so we'll use it. But yeah, I definitely think there is a hammered dulcimer. If not in that song, a couple of the other ones.
Yeah, it was really, really great to hear the frame drums in there, because you hear a lot of that in both Arab and in Celtic folk music. So I thought that was a really, really appropriate instrument to use in that song.
Yeah, I love that.
So the first single, Redemption, do I hear some uilleann pipes in there?
Yes, you do.
And is that Troy from Nightwish?
That is Troy. Yeah, he's amazing. Man, the song sounded really nice without it, but once he added it, it was like, oh, I'm just died and went to heaven hearing that. So it just added that magic it really needed.
I photographed Nightwish last spring of last year, and I was really, really glad that they gave him some time to show off his own thing with his pipes, because there's just something about that sound that is just takes you somewhere else. It takes you to another world, and I love hearing it. And it was really, really great to hear him. And like, this is a lot more like the Troy that I first heard 20 odd years ago when he was with Iona, that Celtic rock band that he used to be with.
Hmm.
Was there any talk about that when you linked up with him?
No, not really. We were just super focused on the task at hand because he had a very short window of time when he could even do this. He was like right in the middle doing recordings for the new Nightwish album. And so I caught him right at I was just it was a lucky shot when he just happened to have like a window of 10 days open where he was kind of get into the studio, record it, and then he's out of there back to Finland or whatever they were recording. So yeah, we were just really focused on getting it done. So we didn't really get to chit chat too much outside the project.
I love his contribution to it. It sounds like he put a lot more time into it than he actually did, and yeah, that man's a beast.
Yeah, I was so happy with it.
Honestly, that song Redemption would not sound out of place on a Nightwish album.
Well, I'll take that as a big compliment then. It's probably the least winterish song on the album, but it just had to go on there. So,
and like I mentioned earlier, to me, it sounds like it came from people with a rock background, like most obviously in that song.
yeah, I think probably during the bridges, and there's like a couple of different spots in the bridge where it definitely has like a driving parts to it. So it's quite energetic, even though there's not heavy guitars and drums. There's other things going on. So that makes sense.
Now, how have people that are not into metal taken to that particular song?
To be honest, I don't really know. Other than my friends and family who aren't metalheads necessarily, they all say they like it. So I think that's a good sign. But you never know because friends and family, they're just always nice to you.
To you.
Yeah. So yeah, but they're all super supportive, and I hope people like it. People even who aren't into metal.
Now, the song "The Messenger" to me just sounds like absolute magic, and I want to know more about that song.
Thanks. It was one of those ones my producer was like, why do you want to put that on there? It's not really a song. I said, I know, but it just has to go on there. That one was just all about creating that atmosphere I was talking about, that ethereal, magical atmosphere that I just tried to imagine, just something super angelic, and it just had to go in it. I can't explain it other than I knew it had to be in there.
It has that effect on me that it just transports me somewhere else. And even though it's only about 2 minutes long, it feels like I could be in there forever.
Well, that's cool. And I think I would do more of that sort of thing because, trust me, there's more that came from, but I don't know what the reaction is yet either. So we'll have to see how it's received. And maybe on the next fantasy album, I'll do more of that sort of thing.
I would really like to hear that.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
So, like, you close the album out with 3 songs that are... that are already like kind of well known, but it's not exactly jingle bells either. Like and like the first of those 3, Gaudete, it doesn't stray very far from that old Finnish Swedish hymn, but you've culted it up a bit and you did something else with it also.
What was that?
Well, I don't know, maybe I'm mistaken, but it sounds like you added an interlude to it.
Oh yeah. So I know I took some creative liberty. That song it's a very old song, like we're talking 16th century, and there's been many, many beautiful renditions of it, but I wanted to give it my twist. I was like, if I'm going to do a cover songs, that's right, I'm not doing Jingle Bells, no Santa Baby, none of that stuff, even though I did get the odd request for stuff like that. I was like, no, it has to align with who I really am. It needs to feel very authentic when I do it. So if I'm going to choose cover songs, they've got to be Leah-fied. So what can I do? And so I chose these songs based on what felt right. Also, I did up some demos to see, hey, which one suits my voice? And so I did a few others that I started working on. Just thought, you know what, this is cool, but I don't think it's right for my voice. It doesn't give off the right effect. So I went with these ones. And yeah, Gaudete, I tried to really give it that Celtic folk vibe. We did add a little interlude to it and just really gave it a unique twist.
I personally really enjoy that one. It's one of my favorite moments on the album. The one that follows that one. Now, unless there's another arrangement that I don't know about, it sounds like you made a completely new song out of an ancient Gregorian chant. Can you walk me through how you transformed Puernatus?
Oh yeah. Well, the only version I'd ever heard of that was I think I was doing research earlier in the year on different kind of songs, medieval type traditional carols that I could possibly do. A friend pointed me to that, but the only version I'd ever heard was these like female nuns or something singing it, like
Mm-hmm.
this type of choir, and it was really cool. And I was like, oh, it's got this definitely got a unique charm to it. I've never heard anything like this. I don't think it's a very well known song. Maybe some people are more educated than me in historic songs or something like that, but I just thought, well, let's try it and see if I can give it, that Leah Celtic fantasy folk vibe. And yeah, the more I fleshed it out, the more I liked it. By the time I got it back for my producer, I was like in love with that song. I was like, this is a cool, really cool, fun song, and I hope people will enjoy it.
So, did you model it after that version that you're already familiar with, or?
Not really. It was like so different. It was very just almost vocals only, like very few instruments and very few anything else going on. Just a few things. I know they did have a few instruments now that I recall, but no, it's definitely got a different vibe.
Okay, yeah, because like every version of that song that I'd heard had been a Gregorian chant, and a lot more somber. Yours is a little more joyful and well spirited, and like Gregorian
Oh
chants
yeah,
generally are not.
I know what you're talking about because I have heard other versions, also called Puernatus,
Mhm.
where it is like a completely different melody.
Yes.
Completely different. Okay, so yeah, I think there's actually a couple different versions out there with
Hmm.
so either similar lyrics or with the same title, but they're different melodies and different just rhythms and all of that.
Hmm.
So I actually considered both of them, and I went with the more happy version.
Yeah, so like the one that I was familiar with, like you use the words, the text from that one, but you kind of skip verses around where instead of like, doing the first, second, and third, you go from like the first, the fifth, the seventh, and then back to the sixth or something like that.
Right?
For the
Yeah.
words. Yeah. So you are aware of that chant then.
Yeah, and I always do research whenever
Hmm.
I go to do something traditional because I want to do it justice and I want to make sure I'm not like breaking some rule or, you know, bringing a curse upon myself or something if I do it different. And so what I realized about these type of hymn type songs, these chants where there's multiple verses that are just repetitive over and over again, is that typically throughout history, people will already pick and choose the verses they want to do because it is just a repetition.
Yeah.
And so you just pick and choose the ones. And if I'm completely honest, I chose certain verses also based on their ease of pronunciation since it's all in Latin. So if I'm completely honest, there are some other verses that are pretty difficult to pronunciate, or correctly anyway. So that's part of it, but also it's just the folk way, right? You pick
Yeah.
and choose verses. That's part of the folk tradition.
You also threw out the Alleluias and changed it to Amor.
Yeah, no, and that was really fun too. I enjoyed doing like that choir effect.
Yeah.
I think it gave it some meat.
Yeah, but not so much meat that it drags you down.
Yeah,
Yeah, like it's still very lighthearted, and I really like that.
yeah, and the male vocal in that part is my producer Oliver Phillips. So if you notice that,
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
yeah,
Cool.
so you can hear him in there. It's subtle. It's not like you hear. He's not like in the forefront, but the
Mhm.
male vocal is him.
Where did Anna Murphy contribute?
Oh gosh, I have to look at all this. She mostly was doing the hurdy-gurdy,
Mhm.
and she did that on a number of songs and never a number of places. I'd have to pull up each and every song, but anywhere where you hear the hurdy-gurdy, that's her playing.
Okay.
Yeah, so she's definitely in track one. I don't know about not Light of the World,
Hmm.
but certainly in those folk songs at the end. Yeah, I mean it's throughout. It's kind of sprinkled throughout.
Okay. Cool. And then you close the album out with that French carol that like I'd actually never heard before. What's the story with this one?
Yeah, I have actually had several requests for me to sing that one. I first heard it sung by Lorena McKennitt, and I learned that that's also a very old traditional song. And again, many verses. There's a lot of repetition, and so you kind of pick and choose the different verses you want to do. Otherwise, there's like 14. So
Yeah.
with a lot of these kind of songs is a similar thing. So I first heard her sing it. I really like her version, but I thought if I'm gonna do it, it's not going to be a knockoff of her version. I need to make it mine, and that's my rule for doing cover songs or traditional songs. Is that if I'm doing it and there's lots of other renditions of it, it needs to have my twist to it, or there's no point. So I just took it, sang it, kind of just laid it out, and then added the instruments I thought that would really make it exciting. And then I added some vocal parts in between to really make it my own as well. And it wasn't really originally the plan, but it worked out. And yeah, I'm happy with how it turned out.
You told me earlier that you are a fellow podcaster, and I've got to hear about this.
Yeah, I have another podcast, so a lot of people don't know. Well, number one, I apologize for my audio if you're listening. Normally I have really good audio setup, but it didn't work today. But anyways, I have a podcast called The Savvy Musician Show. A lot of people don't know this, but when I'm not making music and hanging out with my 5 kids, my other passion is teaching musicians how to market their music online effectively without a label. So I teach a lot about digital marketing, and we have like a coaching program and online education program. So I started that company in 2015. It's called Savvy Musician Academy. The podcast is a Savvy Musician Show, and we get pretty detailed into the online digital marketing world of what all is involved in being a successful musician without a label these days, and the nitty gritty of it. So that's what it is.
Yeah, and it seems to me that you have a little bit of expertise in that field.
Yeah, I've got some experience under my belt anyways, doing this sort of thing. And I'm just, you know what? I'm a constant student. Like I may have a lot of expertise, but I'm always a student. There's so much to learn. And when you take that approach, you just are a sponge, and I can learn something from everybody.
Speaking of marketing yourself and your music, I was looking at your web shop earlier today, and I was astounded at how much stuff you've got there.
Oh yeah, selling merchandise is a big part of any musician's career. If you're on tour, you've got your merch table, and I'm not a touring artist at the moment. I've always been a recording artist since 2012. So I do a lot of e-commerce. I do a lot of that, and I find things that align with my brand and my music and who I am, and that becomes part of it. That's these days, to be a successful musician, you have to think outside the box. You can't just go, oh, I'm only selling singles and streams and downloads. Like it's very hard to make a living off of $10 items.
Yeah.
So, or $1 singles. Like nobody can make a living like that. So you have to think outside the box. You got to get creative, and really, it's so much fun. I have so much fun coming up with new stuff that my fans ask for, or I get their feedback, I get their involvement in it, and it's just a blast.
Yeah, I was really impressed with all the like Celtic and Nordic themed decor that you have. I mean, like you've got like bed sets and that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, so there's so much you can do these days online. So yeah, if someone is willing to put in the work and they're serious about their career, it's the way I see it is it's bigger than the music. For me, the music is just part of what I would call like a culture or a lifestyle. And I think, there's more to what I do than just the music. The music is the backdrop, is the soundtrack, but there's more.
Before I forget, I am in the market for a new couch. Take that knowledge and do whatever you want with it.
A new couch. Okay. Well, I will keep that in mind. I have not seen the perfect couch design, so now you gave me an idea.
Hey, so real quick, when's the new album out?
November 15th, and pre-orders start on November 1st.
And where can people pre-order your album?
They can go to ancientwinter.com, and we will have all kinds of cool stuff, goodies and bundles and all that kind of thing.
And maybe even a couch one day.
You never know.
Thank you so much for making a Christmas album that doesn't make me go on a killing spree. That's like literally never happened before. Congratulations and thank you for doing that.
Oh, thank you so much. It was really a pleasure chatting with you.
That is Celtic metal singer Leah, everybody. As she mentioned, her mellowed out holiday album is called Ancient Winter, and it is currently available for pre-order at ancientwinter.com, where you can also find her back catalog, shirts, decor, bedroom sets, etc. You can learn more about her at leahmusic.net. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to Sonic Perspectives on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And be sure to find us on the podcast app of your choice, and kindly leave us a favorable rating. This is Gonzo signing out from the Sonic Perspectives Texas Bureau, and I am going to ride you out with the first single from Ancient Winter. This is Redemption.
You are the storm in the distance, an all-consuming fire, and all I can do is surrender right now. You are the rage in the ocean waves, the freezing cold in the winter, and all I can